Good afternoon. Again, it's Monday, November 2nd, and as I had said in my video earlier today, one of the things I wanted to talk about was a little bit of mechanical help, so to speak, in writing up your discussion responses and your papers. And I thought I'd do this even before I get to reading all of them, but it just is a recap of issues that have come up regularly over the last year. And I think sometimes it's better to get some things out early and so they don't become a problem for anyone. And also to explain some of the reasons I'm asking you to do these things. So they're very simple, but they're very important, and sometimes we just ignore them and really shouldn't if we're going to go through a good, solid academic process. So here are a couple of tips for you that I think will help make the experience you have in the course a lot better and will avoid any problems as we go along. The first one is with the discussions, and to some degree with the papers. And you'll notice in the discussions we do ask a specific question. We ask you to discuss certain points. Also, in some of the assignments, we have instructions of going to a certain passage in the text, or maybe a case study, and answering specific questions. Now, what I notice happens sometimes is that students have a tendency, not all, few actually, but some have a tendency to write the question right into their body of their response, or right into the body of their paper. They really just go in and quote the questions, and then proceed to go on and answer them. This is something that really is unnecessary. Now, it may help you in drafting your response, which I understand, but it's also unnecessary in the post or in the paper. And I'll tell you why I find it something that maybe you want to avoid. Not just is it unnecessary and causes more volume. It does a couple of things mechanically and then one thing from an educational standpoint. Let's do the educational first. What happens when you write down the questions and you have them right in front of you as you're composing the rest of your answer? I find that students tend to answer that question and that question alone. They don't allow their brains to just open up. They don't allow their minds to go and really think expansively about the issue. And so the answer tends to be a little bit narrow, and it isn't full of the possibilities that you could bring to it. You focus your attention too much. What I'm asking you to do is focus your attention on the whole issue, the subject matter that's asked in the question, and in the context in which the question is asked. Don't limit yourself. The other thing is a very practical thing that happens. If you're not aware, I would think you would be by the time you're taking one of our 400 courses, but you do know that as a matter of policy, the university uses the Safe Assign academic integrity software. So if you go and write in the questions as they were taken right from the text or right from the course, guess what we get? We get a match, right? The matching percentage goes up and it looks like you've been copying work. When you haven't, you've been copying the question. Also, this refers to the next point I'm going to bring up. In writing a paper, when you include references, which you must do, you not only should do, you must do, just remember those references show up as a matching percentage. So if you have a very short paper with a lot of references, that takes some investigation on my part, because it's just going to show up as if something is wrong that really isn't wrong. But it plays into the next thing that we're talking about. So really, don't write those questions in. Allow yourself to think freely and make sure you're answering everything in context. Which brings me to another point about discussion. Many of us tend to write very long, detailed first discussion posts, which again is very good. But when you're just rehashing the material that you had presented to you in the course, in the shell, in the readings, we really need to know more about your interpretations of that material, not so much what the material said, because the material is there for everyone. What we want is a discussion of your thinking and your opinion, a free exchange of ideas. And if you just confine yourself to not offering an opinion, not using it to come up with a question on your own, you're just rehashing things, that really doesn't help things an awful lot. All right? So remember, this is not a message board, it's a discussion board. We want to encourage engagement and interaction between students, instructor, the whole 9 yards. This is important. Now, for the section that I said you may not have known about. And this probably won't show up until later in the course. And I don't think it's probably not shown up yet because I haven't even touched the opening papers yet. But one thing I really want people to be aware of, you can copy your own work, and that's not the right thing to do. Okay, notice I said you can. That means you have the ability. You may not, right? Each course, each paper needs to be treated as a separate entity. And this is a common practice in academic writing. It's not a university policy, it's not a course policy, it's not my policy, it's methodology in academic writing. So if you've written a paper before and you find that it overlaps with the question that we've just asked in this course, and there are some courses where that possibility exists, please, please, please do not go and take that paper, copy it, and submit it as a new work. It is improper procedure. Now, a lot of people are going to say, well, wait a minute, it's my work, it's original, I wrote it, but it didn't write it for this course, for the assignment, for the question that was asked. In a word, it's one I like to avoid, but the word I'm going to use, you plagiarize yourself. And that is an issue in academic writing. And if you want to use that paper, certainly paraphrase the work you've done previously. Mention it. Remember now, though, you have become your own source of information. So what does that require that you do? It requires that you cite yourself as the source and you cite and reference your previous paper. I'm finding that a lot of students are not aware of this procedure, and I don't want to be judging people about it without fair representation. I wanted to say warning, but that's not a warning. This is really my explaining the process to you. So just remember, if you do use work that you've done before, you can't use it verbatim, word for word, and you become your own source. You do have to cite yourself not only in text, but with the proper reference. Now, I hope this helps, and I know it may actually raise more questions than it answers. So once again, as with anything else, I'm asking you to contact me if you do have questions. But I wanted to get this out in front of folks because it's very important. One of the skills we try to make sure that we develop is written communication. And written communication, despite us being in the age of social media and email and all this other fun stuff and messaging and any number of ways of doing it, even what I'm doing today by video, written communication is still an extremely important part of your business education. And the ability to do that well becomes really important as you progress through your academic world and as you get into your professional life. Make sure you understand what's required of you. Make sure you read the rubric whenever you do an assignment. And if you have any question about anything, please ask me. That will help us from having some issues in the future that are really not necessarily and definitely not your fault. Okay? Thank you very much.